Hey, hey!
Good morning, Soraya. It's Jeff. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
I'm doing really good. So today on our show, we're talking to Jason Victor, guitar player for Dream Syndicate.
And head of his own band, Skull Practitioners.
Yes, and he's played with Matthew Sweet. He's
Oh
played
my gosh.
with Velvet Crush and a few other things, but I can't wait. Let's go.
Boom. Hi, this is Soraya.
And this is Jeff,
Our podcast is called Paisley Stage, Raspberry and Rhyme.
a podcast where the two of us play music that we like and share anecdotes and background about the tunes.
We hope you'll join our conversation. And without further ado, a grooviar.
Let's get groovy. All right, let's give Jason a call.
Boom.
Hello.
Hello, Jason. It's Jeff and Soraya. How are you doing this morning?
Good. How are you doing?
We're doing
All right.
we're doing great and super excited to get to talk to you.
Oh, thanks for doing this, and I'm excited too. Although I'm probably a horrible interviewee. that interviewer, terrible interviewer.
We highly doubt that. But once again, Jason, we want to welcome you to Paisley Stage, Raspberry and Rhyme. And just indulge us here, Jason, okay? So for our listeners today on the podcast, we're speaking to Jason Victor, who Jeff and I really first came to know on Friday, December 6th, 2013. Jeff, you remember that night?
I remember it very well.
All right. So for our listeners, you have to picture the Henry Fonda Theater in Los Angeles. And this is where the Paisley Underground reunion concert came up. So on that night, a lone man walks out onto the stage, and the Dream Syndicate set began with When You Smile, which had an intro of nearly 2 minutes of this impressive making of Jason's Fender guitar feedbacking through his amp, which was placed to the left of longtime members Steve Wynn, Dennis Duck, and Mark Walton. And in that same show, during the middle break of their final song of the set, Days of Wine and Roses, Jason jumps off the stage right in front of Jeff and I,
Yep.
nearly destroying the guitar strings by using the metal guardrail as some sort of industrial-sized slide. And it was on that day, my friends, that we knew the Dream Syndicate was back in full force. Jason, can you please tell us how you came to partner with Steve Wynn and eventually become part of the current lineup of Dream Syndicate?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's sort of a great story in and of itself, and I'll try and make it as brief as possible, maybe. But so I was working at a record store in Manhattan called Venus Records. That's, of course, like most record stores in New York, no longer there. And I had been turned on to his music from a coworker who one time said, "You got to check this out." And he played me a Medicine Show, and I just became sort of obsessed with the Dream Syndicate and Steve solo stuff. And it was around the time, maybe a few years later, or it's around the time that Steve had moved to New York. And so he was actually a customer at the store. So he would come in, and I would be, all kind of fanboy, and he would come in and sell tons of CDs. And of course, because we were fans, we would give him great prices. And so at one point I sort of gained the courage, and I said, "Hey, there's one thing I always wanted to do in my life was to go on tour." I'd never been on tour with any band that I was in. And he asked me if they actually had an upcoming tour, and he asked if I can drive a van and do merch. And obviously, since I'm working in a record store, I know how to do merch. And I sort of lied about being able to drive a van. And I said, yeah, I can do that. I'd never had drove a van before. I never had done stick shift, which it would have been. But I kind of bluffed and said I can do it. And so I was set to be the driver merch for his, what would what was the Here Come the Miracles tour. And at some point we had gotten together to jam a couple times, and as he will say it, he'll say that he did that just in order to ensure that he would still get decent buyback rates on his CDs. So we jammed a couple times, probably to I don't know, some of his songs, maybe some Creedence tunes. I can't recall exactly what, but so he knew that I can, that I knew how to do a couple chords, and I also told him I knew all his songs. And a few weeks before the tour was supposed to start, his guitarist wasn't able to do the tour, and for some reason he asked me to do it. And so it was in that one day that I was fired as the merch driver and hired as guitar player.
Nice.
And it was incredible. And I remember going on that tour, and on that first day, we're driving through some really small European streets and thinking, there's no way I would have been able to do this.
Oh.
I would have just up and left and went back to the airport, and that would have been it. So I think it worked out well and best for everyone.
Nice. So it's good that you got that. I don't know if you want to call it a promotion, but yeah, that change in roles.
Demotion, I'm not sure.
So Jason, it sounds like you were familiar with with Dream Syndicate prior to joining with Steve, and I think you played on a few live things, but was your first studio recording with Steve on the Miracles 3's Static Transmission? Was that your first studio recording?
Yeah. So it's the one after Here Come the Miracles. So yeah, it would have been that one, Static Transmission.
Do you remember recording that and how that was?
Yeah, that was great. I mean, I was super nervous because that was probably one of my first real recording experiences. And so, I mean, I guess I had been in a couple studios before, but never anything like Wave Lab, which is an amazing studio out in Tucson. It was sort of nerve-wracking and exciting at the same time. Also, I kind of feel I get that sort of red light fever. I get a little scared when I see that we're recording and that this is quote unquote permanent. Right. For me, it's much easier to do the live thing where I know it's like it's here and gone. So it's a little bit more intense and tense during the recording process, but it was exciting for me. It's like, here I am, and I would always sort of pinch myself, here I am recording with this guy and this band that I just have listened to nonstop for the last couple of years. Wow. So for me, that was a really special moment.
Jason, on the following release, Tick, 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 you're given co-writing credit on the song Turning of the Tide.
Begin to sweat and your eyes are getting weak. You stumble when you walk and you stammer when you speak. Don't be afraid, it's just the turning of the tide. If you find the things you know are coming out like lies, and the friends who held you up are bringing you down to size, don't be afraid, it's just the turning of the tide. the turning of the tide. If the ones you love have turned their backs and shut you down, your hands are pulling in the grass and your face is in the ground. Don't be afraid, it's just the turning of the tide. Don't be afraid, it's just the turning of the tide.
How did that song come together?
There was a time Steve, Linda, my now wife, and I were we were in the Berkshires of Massachusetts and hanging out, and we had a couple guitars, and Steve and I were just sitting around, and it was really sort of just throwing off ideas, and it just kind of came really quickly, and I didn't actually think anything would come from it. And then, a few weeks later, he said, "Oh, I have something written from that jam we did," and it was Turning of the Tide. So it was sort of really unplanned. To my recollection, it was just kind of just casually sitting around, and then this song comes from it. So I was kind of pleasantly shocked and surprised by that.
Wow, I love that. Jason, you've sat in with a number of artists live and on recordings, and we wanted to talk about a few of those, if you don't mind. Can you tell us about working with Chris Kakovez, who now plays organ and keyboards with Dream Syndicate, on his 2004 release, Self-Taught? Do you remember working on that?
Yeah, that was a pretty crazy and intense time. For Chris, I was also, through the Dream Syndicate, I had gotten into a lot of those other bands, and Green on Red was probably the other of my favorites of the Paisley Underground bands. And I was just sort of obsessed with mostly with Chris's solo stuff as well. I just loved it. And so I met him probably at one of my first LA shows playing with Steve. I remember meeting him there. And he was living, a few years later, he was living in Germany, and he knew I was a fan. And we had done some touring together with the Miracle 3. He was playing keyboards on some of the tours and the records. He needed a guitar player for this record he was going to do. And what happened is that we were on tour, actually, at the time the Miracle 3 was. I think we were in a tour opening for Ryan Adams.
Oh, wow.
And we're doing about a week and a half of European dates. And sort of in between those dates, I would go back to Germany and record what became Self-Taught. And it was recorded in a house. So some of the studio was downstairs in the basement, and I was sitting in the living room. I just remember sitting in the living room with my setup.
Wow.
And with my headphones on, and it was done really quickly, just a few days, and probably still to this day one of my favorite recordings that I've been on.
Wow.
I don't tend to listen to stuff I've done all that much, but that one I will throw on. It just has a special place in my heart.
Yeah, it's a great record.
And 2004 was a pretty busy year for you, Jason, because you play a couple of songs on the Silos, released from the same year, When the Telephone Rings. You also play on Mary McBride's By Other Name, which has a few songs co-written by Steve.
Still coming up there.
And on Jonathan Rundman's song Smart Girls from Public Library, also released in the same year.
Listen to me, boys, and learn important things. Benefit from wisdom that experience brings. I will be specific, I will be direct. When you look for love, look for intellect. You know that smart girls shine like laser light, 'cause they're so sharp and they're so bright.
Was it just sessions kind of one built onto the other? Like, this was a really busy year for you.
Yeah, I was touring a lot, like those years and that year. The Silos, I'd known Walter from the Silos also through touring, but he lived nearby to me in New York, and he had asked me to play on some of the Silos stuff, especially that was after the Silos bass player, Drew Glacken, had passed away, who is a good friend of all of ours. So I would go to Walter's studio, which was in his apartment, and record with him over there. And that's actually how because he produced I think he did produce the Jonathan Rundman record, and that's how it came to be where I played on that as well.
Okay. Some other recordings that we found that you were playing on in 2006, you added guitars to Willard Grant Conspiracy's Let It Roll album.
was a paper mache, cross painted gold, up on the hill, wildflowers.
And in 2007 on Chris and Carla's album Fly High Brave Dreamers. And on Inara Garden's 2011 release, We Once Wished. Can you tell us anything about those sessions?
Yeah. Willard Grant, also I'd met through being on tour with Steve, and I ended up doing a few tours with them, and then that record, and that was just such a phenomenal band, and it's just so great to be a part of. And it was one of these bands that has, thousands of members kind of thing, just all over the world. I mean, that band was made of people from Japan, London, Netherlands, California, New York. It was just, it was pretty special to see how it's just all these people from all over. And maybe it was after a tour or so, we ended up recording what became the Let It Roll record in Slovenia. And Chris Ekman from Walkabouts and his own solo stuff was the producer of that record. And so I probably met Chris a few times before at some of these Glitter House festivals in Germany. And so he was living actually in Slovenia at the time, and then asked me, because I was traveling a lot to Croatia at that time, because my now wife she's from there.
Okay.
So I was nearby often enough, so he would ask me. So he asked me to actually play on one of the Chris and Carla recordings.
Nice.
So I spent a few more days in Slovenia and recorded with them there. And the Ainara was someone I met in Spain, and she's this incredible musician and talent, and she does a lot of currently now this experimental kind of avant-garde music, but also does the more traditional rock kind of records. And we just became fast friends, and she had asked me to play on this record, and I was just honored to do so. She's just amazing.
And then, timeline-wise, it brings us then into 2013, when the Steve Wynn project sounds like it turns into the current lineup of Dream Syndicate. And we're just curious if you remember any of the conversations about the band reforming, about Dream Syndicate reforming, with you as part of the lineup.
Probably my memory is so hazy on almost everything in my life, but I'll do my best. Steve, I guess it was a Miracle 3. We had played a house concert for some friends of ours in LA, and everyone was there. So Mark was there, Dennis was there, and at some point during that party, the four of us, and it was I had met Mark and Dennis, but I didn't know them very, very well at that point. But we played probably like "Tell Me When It's Over," maybe another song, and that was the first time that what became the current Dream Syndicate version played together. And Dream Syndicate was offered this show to do in Spain, and I'm pretty sure that that they had asked if like the other guitarists would want to do it, but they were not interested at the time, I suppose. And so it sort of was natural that Steve would then ask me, as I'd been his guitarist for so long and knew the songs, forwards and backwards. He asked the other two guys, and they said yes, and that was really it. And then when we played together, it just gelled so well, in my opinion, and hopefully their opinion as well.
Yeah.
But it seems I guess they seem to think I'm okay at this point.
Yeah.
So that's good. Good for me.
Nice. So, Jason, I gotta be honest. I was, as a long time Dream Syndicate fan, when I found out that there was a new guitar player, I was very apprehensive until that night at Henry Fonda's show, where you just blew me away, and now you're one of my top 5 favorite guitarists of all time. So,
well, thank you. Thank you very, very much.
You're incredible to watch live, and the recordings are just amazing. And speaking of recordings, so almost 30 years after the last studio album, the Dream Syndicate releases How Did I Find Myself Here? And that was in 2017. How was it different recording with the Dream Syndicate versus recording with Steve Wynn and the Miracle 3? Was it the same or was it different?
It's funny. I mean, I've thought about this a lot, and I think we probably all at certain points had conversations about this, and it just feels different, and I'm not sure I can put my finger on it, but obviously the rhythm section's different, and they play very differently from Dave DeCastro and Linda Pittman, so it's a different feel. And those Dennis and Mark have this super long history as well, which is it's just interesting to see that in action and to play against it. I guess it just felt a little different, though. The Miracle 3 is Steve's band, and he kind of has the ultimate say in everything. Dream Syndicate feels a bit more where there are maybe more decisions from everyone. It's hard to. I'm not saying he's like a dictator controlling in one situation and not the other, but it just feels a little different. I really can't exactly point my finger to it, or on it rather, but it does feel a bit different.
Jason, I want to piggyback about the recording of that album to ask about one song that you have a co-writing credit with Steve on, and that's "The Circle." I was curious, because you definitely make that distinction between, the recording process is just a little different, different band, different makeup. It's a different experience. Was writing, the process of writing the circles similar to or different from Turning of the Tide? Or
I think it was similar in the sense that Steve and I got together. We're just trying to drum up some ideas, and he like before the records, he would send us about 6,000 ideas that he had. I wish I was exaggerating. And then he'll email you every other hour to ask if we've all listened to it and what we think, and to put them in order. And he's incredible with this, and he's like so meticulous with it. And I don't even respond to him for about 17 days or something, because it's just so overwhelming. But then, for that song, we just got together to try out some of his ideas, and I just started playing this riff I think my guitar just ended up in some strange tuning, and he started playing against it, and we recorded, through our phones or something, the rehearsal, and he listened back and he's like, I think this is something. Okay. And so, a few weeks later, he wrote the lyrics and finished the music, and that was kind of it.
I love it. It's a great tune.
Yeah, I love that one. It's super fun to play live. I know we didn't play it the last tour, but maybe it's something we'll pull out again.
I'm glad that you mentioned playing live, because that leads into my next question. In 2019, Dream Syndicate releases These Times, and you have extensive touring for the album. And I think you alluded to it earlier, but do you prefer working in the studio or in a live setting? It sounds like in a live setting it's more loose and you feel more comfortable. Do you prefer one over the other?
Yeah, definitely live. It's just, I feel, there's obviously a different energy there. My nerves are they're not as frayed as in the studio, where you just feel like everything's under a microscope. I feel I'm a bit more free to kind of try things out live. And it's funny because Steve's always like, just when we're recording, he's always like, just do it as you would do it live. And I mean, a lot of this stuff on the records ends up being my first takes of songs.
Wow.
Some that I don't even know that well, but they just come out that way. And there are solos that come out that way too, that they're first takes, and then he keeps them, and I'm always pushing him to let me try again, and he'll say, nope, this is it. And there are instances where I've gone back, recorded other parts or solos, and said, all right, use this one, and he's like, nope, the first one's better.
Wow.
And, usually he's right. Sometimes he's not, but usually.
It's interesting. I was going to say, it's interesting to me that you feel more comfortable in front of hundreds of eyeballs than in a studio where it's just a handful of people.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know why that is. But it is that way, and I'm just not sure why.
Interesting.
Oh my gosh! And I mean, Jeff and you and I have talked about Jason's playing. It's like he's in a trance, and the guitar and him are they're just speaking. They're speaking on a different level. It's amazing to watch you live. So to hear that some of those solos are first takes, Jeff and I just,
wow.
I mean, my mouth is agape. I can't believe it. Amazing, just amazing.
Thank you.
And Jason, in addition to your fantastic guitar work, we absolutely wanted to mention your production work. And just a few things I want to point out to our listeners. In 2018, Emma Trika released St. Peter, that you produced. And one of the songs, Solomon Said, the two of you co-wrote with Judy Collins. who also
Yeah.
about the song on the spoken part.
The lady comes to the gate, dressed in lavender and leather. Looking north to the sea, she finds the weather fine. She hears the steeple bells ringing through the orchard all the way from town. She watches seagulls fly, silver on the ocean, stitching through the waves the edges of the sky. Many people wander up the hills from all around you, making up your memories and thinking they have found you. They cover you with veils of wonder, as if you were a bride. Young men holding violets are curious to know if you have cried, and tell you why, and ask you why, any way you answer. Lace around the collars of the blouses of the ladies. Flowers from the Spanish friend of the family.
Mark was working on this album, and really, I want to hear a little more about this song and how you get Judy Collins involved.
Yeah, that's probably will remain the most surreal kind of piece that I'll ever work on. So Emma and I had met years ago, and we were always threatening to work together. And then it finally came to fruition a couple of years ago. And when she lives in London, but when she was over in New York and we're getting ready to just mess around with some friends and play some music and see what happens, she had picked up my guitar, which was again in some crazy tuning, like some Joni Mitchell tuning or something, and just started coming up with this melody on it. And I picked up another guitar, and right then and there just came up with something for it, and that became that song. And she shared a manager with Judy Collins, and she had basically Emma kept saying, I want to have a voice on this song, because it was recorded just as a 6-7 minute instrumental, and she kept thinking that she wanted a voice on it. And at one point she emailed me and said, just an email, Judy Collins. And I just thought, that's, firstly, that will never happen.
Yeah.
And secondly, that's incredible. And she got in touch with Judy's people. They heard the song. They said yes. And so Judy Collins she recited the lyrics to one of her older songs on top of it. And it was amazing. I just took the track when it was sent to us, put it on top of what we did, and it just fit perfectly. It was just incredible, and to hear her voice on this piece that we wrote was truly surreal.
So what was it like for you being in the producer's seat?
It was interesting. I never really had done that role when it really wasn't my own band, and it was great. I mean, I would sit with the music, and I would just do a lot of work with it at home, and just sort of try and shape it, come up with some ideas, and then send it to her, and then pray that she would like what it was. And she I would say, like 9.5 out of 10 times she loved it.
Wow.
And she's such an incredible talent, and so easy and fun to work with. And then the band, this really talented songwriter and guitarist, Pete Gallup, was playing bass on it, who's not a bass player per se, but I sort of begged him into doing it. And thankfully he said yes. And then the great Steve Shelley from Sonic Youth was his drums on that record, and that was, you know, an honor and a privilege to work with him.
Wow, that is really cool. I'm gonna guess another honor and privilege to work with. Can we talk a little bit about Matthew Sweet? So when I first heard that you were playing with him, I was so excited, and it still amazes me that this happened. So starting with 2017's Tomorrow Forever, you've actually played on the last few records with Matthew Sweet. How was it for you getting that gig?
As you said, it was super surreal. I received it, I guess Linda Pittman from the one and only amazing Linda Pittman, who sent me a text at one point. She's like, I hope you don't mind, I passed your contact info to Matthew Sweet people. And, you know, I texted back, I'm like, that's okay. I'm not mad at you. And I don't know, days, weeks later, I get a text from Matthew, who I'd never met, but he said, hey, I hope you don't mind me reaching out to you, but I'm working on a record and wanted to see if you'd be interested in playing on a song. And, you know, responded within seconds, yes. You know, probably all caps, yes. 300 exclamation points. And then he sent me a song, and which was Trick of the Light. I just, you know, listened to it, and I think probably within a couple hours I'd come up with something and sent it back to him, and just sort of kept pressing refresh on my, you know, on my email, seeing when a response would come.
Right. Yeah.
I just didn't even do anything, you know. I just sat in front, maybe with a cup of coffee, and that was it. And then I think he responded within, I swear, maybe like 30 to 40 minutes or something. It was super quick.
Wow.
And it was just like, I love it. This is great. This is perfect. Would you be up for another song?
Oh.
You know, and then that happened he sent me about, maybe in total, about 8 songs or so. And so it was all just done via email. He would send me the tracks. I would come up with something, and I think everything that I sent him, he was just like, I love it. This is great. Which was a nice ego boost.
Yeah.
And then, then the records come out, and then I'm on, I'm on the record with also John Mormon, his other guitarist, who's incredible. And it was just super, it was super weird. You know, these are people I listened to when I was younger, never ever crossing my mind that I'd ever be playing with these people. And getting to tour with them and that band with Paul Chastain and Rick Mank. And it was just a blast. Just great musicians, great songs.
And your playing is a great fit with Matthew's songs, I'd say. And some of the live performances, you look so happy playing with him. It's just great. So
that's great. Those songs mean so much to people. You know, when you play something like Sick of Myself or Girlfriend and or Waiting, and people, they light up. And to be a part of that is, to me, really special, and not something I really take for granted. It really affects me in the best way.
I love that. So you mentioned Paul and Rick playing with Matthew Sweet, and I'm just blown away, Jason, that you've played in some of like my all-time favorite bands with Dream Syndicate, Matthew Sweet, but also you did some shows with Velvet Crush, another one of my all-time favorite bands. Was that pretty fluid since you had already played with Paul and Rick with Matthew Sweet's band?
Yeah, they were on one of the Matthew tours. They were discussing Paul and Rick about getting back together, and I kept telling them, like, you got to do it. Like, this is the time. Everybody's getting back together. Why wouldn't you guys do it?
Everybody's doing it.
Yeah, don't be foolish, you know. So they were really getting there, and then they ended up at one point getting back and doing a rehearsal practice with Jeffrey and with their one-time guitarist who was on tour with us, of course, the incredible Tommy Keene.
Yes.
And unfortunately, Tommy had passed away, and that was a big blow to all of us. But, you know, especially to those guys who had known him for so long, and who he was in the band with them, and really Tommy was so excited that Velvet Crush was going to do something again, and the four of them were ready for it. So once he passed away, and they were just thinking, and at one point Paul and Rick asked me, like, if we do something, would you be someone, you know, that we could consider to come play with us for a couple shows? And I said, of course, you know, it'd be an honor, it'd be great. And, you know, months later, or however long it was, they told me, all right, we have these shows booked, would you be, you know, are you able to do them? And I was free, and I was super ready to do it and excited to do it. And so we just did these 2 weeks in the Northeast, and it was a blast. It was so fun. You know, also these great songs, great songwriters,
yes.
Really talented guys. And, you know, also one of these cases where you're playing and seeing how much these songs and this band meant to people. It's so cool.
I'm praying that they decide to do some West Coast dates, but I'm not holding hope. But I would love for that to happen.
I don't see why it wouldn't. I guess I mean, I haven't heard anything booked yet, but I think they would all want to do it too.
That would be amazing.
Speaking of bands that I'd like to see on the West Coast,
yes,
Jason, we want to switch gears and talk about Skull Practitioners.
Oh no!
So a couple of months back, we had Ronnie Barnett of the Muffs on our show, and he helped us do a series that we called Side Projects, and where we looked at the 4 core Paisley Underground bands, and then started looking at their side projects. And the show that we did focused on Dream Syndicate side project. Ronnie Barnett picked Skull Practitioners.
Ronnie,
and
so sweet.
He's amazing.
Yeah,
and we do want to mention, so the band has one cassette-only release, ST1, but a recently released EP called Death By. we want to pick your brain about Skull Practitioners. Talk to us a little bit about this band and this latest EP.
So I wish I could remember what year we formed, but we've been together for about 6-7 years now in various incarnations. The three members of Skull Practitioners, myself, bass player Kenneth Levine, and drummer Alex Baker, we were in a band called DBCR together, and we released a 7-inch. And that band split up, and then the three of us formed what's now Skull Practitioners. We are very unfortunately slow in putting out material, but we had finally released a cassette a few years ago. We had been looking for a singer forever, and we just couldn't find one that really. It became difficult because the three of us played together for a long time, and often, every week the three of us would get together. That we just developed this what's the word I'm looking for? But this sort of, intuition and this just ability to communicate with each other so well. It was hard for anyone else to just sort of fit in. And so at some point we said, all right, the hell with it. We can sing, why not? And we're all very reluctant to do that. But on the tape, we have some guest singers on the tape. And then on the tape, I think the drummer sings one of the songs. And then live, we just sort of all sing. And then we finally got ourselves together and put out this EP, which is the Death by EP, and couldn't believe it. But then it was picked up by In the Red, by the incredible label In the Red, from Larry Hardy reaching out to me.
Wow!
And that was also one of these things that I couldn't believe happened. That was pretty special and pretty surreal as well.
It's a great EP. I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, we're working on our full length now. And I keep telling Larry it'll be ready soon. And I promise Larry it will be. We'll probably finish it in the next 2 months, I'm guessing. And we should have a full length out later this year.
Wow.
So can I wish out loud, like Jeff wished out loud for Velvet Crush? Can we wish out loud for Wesco's appearance sometime?
Yeah, I think we would all love it. Definitely. I think we're all ready to do it. We play in New York a lot, and we've done a bunch of Ohio shows. The drummer Alex is from Ohio, so we go out there. But that's really about it. So we do need to get our asses in gear and visit some other places.
Slowly moving west.
Yes.
We'll take that.
That would be great. So, Jason, I wanted to get a little techie with you about your guitar. So, the last couple of years you've been playing Swope guitars, and if I'm not mistaken, I talked to you at one of the shows. I don't know if it was at a Matthew Sweet show or a Dream Syndicate show, but I believe you said that you were working with the company to test out their guitars or at least a model when they were first starting out. And I noticed that Ron Wood from the Stones also plays or has played Swope guitar. Yeah. Can you tell us what it is about those guitars and your relationship with Swope?
Yeah. Chris Swope is a friend of mine who used to live in New York and worked at this guitar builder's Sadowski Guitars here, which is a really well-known custom shop. And Chris became my my go-to repair guy. So I would bring him guitars. I mean, it felt like, every other week. It would just, and we became good friends. We even had a band together that released like a self-released CD. And then he moved, and it was hard times. I really hardly took my guitars in ever again to get repaired. And at some point he started building his own guitars, and we would talk about guitars all the time. And the difference is that he actually knows what he's talking about. And I would go, that thing with the thing, and he'd go, "Oh, you mean the neck?" Yeah, the neck. And he's just so talented at what he does. And we would talk about the sort of ideal guitars and what they can do. And when he started when he started his own company, he asked, would you be interested in sort of checking one out that I'm working on and giving your feedback on it? And it was like this opportunity to play this beautiful instrument. So of course I said yes. And then it was fun, after every couple gigs I'd email and I'd say, I think this is great about it. This I'm not so sure about. And he would just take that feedback and, sit on it and, work on it or ignore me. and I mean, he's incredible. He makes his own pickups. Wow. He just invented a brand new tremolo system. And so I have what's now like a brand new guitar that's like more to my specs of something I wanted. And yeah, it's crazy. I mean, he has Ron Wood. The first guitar he ever built was sold to John Oates from Hall & Oates.
Wow.
And then Ron Wood has one, and then I have one.
That was an elite club. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's great, and it's also, jazz masters are now everywhere, so it's kind of fun to have a guitar that's a little off the beaten path, I guess.
Yeah, so I was used to you playing the jazz masters up till that point.
Yeah, and it's funny that guitar, that jazz master is, I play that at almost every show since I started touring, like in 2001, and so it's strange. And you almost feel guilty for not, taking it out. And now it's, sitting in its case, and it's kind of, I feel guilty. I'm not gonna lie.
You're a little bit unfaithful to the jazz master.
Yeah. It doesn't feel good, but
but the guitar does. The Swope guitar does.
But the guitar does. The guitar feels good. So that's what I'm going with now.
Nice.
And we have a couple of other little things before we let you go. We want to tease the upcoming Dream Syndicate album that's due out in April of this year. So Jeff and I have to confess that Steve Wynn, in his very generous spirit, sent us a sneak peek of album. And
whoa!
Wow. So just a little FYI to our listeners: shortest song is 8 minutes. That's the shortest one, and the longest one is 20 minutes. And Jeff and I are just super curious. Can you talk to us at all about the process of recording this album and these songs? Because this is really, it's a really unique album, and it's a unique set of songs.
Yeah, I love this record. I think it's the one that so far I'm most proud of. I mean, it's funny, when we did the How Did I Find Myself Here, I told the band after we finished that one, and I would say, all right, now we have to do at least one more with me so I can be equal with with Carl and Paul as far as how many records I did. The Dream Syndicate. Then and only then you can kick me out or I'll leave. So we did that second one. And for some reason I got the chance to do this third one, which is just, to me, it's this really a culmination of all these ideas that we've been talking about since the band reformed, about the record we maybe, I don't know if really wanted to do, or at least that side of the band that we really wanted to present because I think anybody who sees us live knows that we go on these musical tangents, with, How Did I Find Myself Here? Or, some of the older songs like Coltrane. We'll just sort of go out and see where it goes, see where it takes us. But we didn't really do that as maybe thoroughly on the studio record. And this is the chance to really, this is the one where we are doing that, just seeing where the music takes us, and putting that down as a recording. And it's just, I think it's very different from the other two. And I think people are going to be confused by it, and hopefully in a good way.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, the Regulator is over 20 minutes long, and that song is like, it mixes funk with psychedelia or with rock. It's such a great song.
It's that one is just, it's so killer. It was just fun doing this record, and it was really that was definitely these recordings were definitely more where I felt not as pressured in the studio, because they're less maybe song oriented, where it was more like, okay, let's just see what happens. Let's see if I make this noise, what happens. And a lot of those noises all of them are still there, which is kind of, there's things on that record where I hear it and I just start laughing. I can't believe they left that in, kind of thing.
I love it.
In a good way. And it's, I think it shows that side of the band. And it's a side that to me is really important.
I agree. So that album, if I understand correctly, Steve says it's due out in April, and I believe the album is called The Universe Inside. Is that correct?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think there's been some back and forth on that. So
okay.
But I think that's what that we're going with.
Excellent. All right. Well, we'll wait to see. And you guys are always playing out live. Soraya and I are excited. You guys are coming to the West Coast. On Valentine's Day, interestingly enough, you'll be playing in Oakland. We will be at the Echoplex show on February 15th in Los Angeles. Soraya just coming off back from Europe for a couple weeks. She's going to land and then head to the Echoplex to see you guys.
Oh, my God.
There are certain things you have to do.
Yeah. But before we let you go, Jason, we wanted to ask, did you have anything that you wanted to promote, or social media where people could follow you, or where other people can buy the Skull Practitioner EP or cassette?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I'm on Facebook and Instagram and all that. I'm not completely active, but yeah, it's under my name, Jason Victor. And the Skull Practitioners is available on the In the Red website. You can get it directly from them. That's pretty much it, I think.
And I know that
full length LP soon.
Full length LP soon.
Yes,
soon, definitely.
We'll be looking out for that. And I know the cassette was available on the Bandcamp site for Skull Practitioners. I don't know if that's still available, but
it's I think it's out of print, but we're sold out. But you can just stream and download the songs.
Yeah. Very good, very good. Well, Jason, at the top of the interview, you said you weren't a good interviewee. You lied.
Oh, good.
Thank you so much for all of your stories,
you guys.
and for being so kind to answer all of our questions about some of the projects that you've been involved with. Like I said, personally, you're one of my all-time 5 favorite guitar players ever, and it's just an honor to talk to you, and we're looking forward to seeing you in February next month.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate the time that you gave me for this. So thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks again, Jason.
See you guys next month.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Soraya.
I'm giving him a nickname. Jason is now Jason First Take Victor.
First Take Victor.
First Take.
I love it.
I cannot believe what he said, that some of those solos are first takes.
Yeah. And what's interesting to me...
He's so humble about his skill, and he's so good. Like when he was talking about this new Dream Syndicate album, I just thought, what about if I put this sound here?
Right.
And now I'm just laughing that it's still on the album. I'm like, what? That's incredible.
Yeah. That new album, I can't wait for that to come out, for everybody to hear that. That was so nice of Steve to send us the first time Yeah, go ahead.
Very nice, very generous, and man, what a listen.
Yeah. The first time that I listened to it, I was washing my car, and I put it on my speaker so I could have something to listen to while I'm washing the car. And I had to stop a couple times and go walk up to and re-listen to stuff, rewind it a little bit. And man, it's such a great record. I've listened to it a bunch of times since. I can't wait for it to come out, and I'm hoping that when they play next month that they might kick into a couple of these.
I would love to hear some of those songs live.
Yeah.
Because they sound ridiculously good.
Yeah. So you mentioned the length of time. Let me just read through, with permission from Steve, who said it was okay. I don't know the sequence order of the final record, but the songs that we got, The Regulator, 20 minutes and 27 seconds long.
Yes.
The Longing, which interestingly enough is the shortest song at 7 minutes 30 seconds. Apropos of Nothing, 9 minutes 33 seconds. Dusting Off the Rust, 9 minutes 55 seconds. And the slowest rendition, 10 minutes 53 seconds. So 5 songs take up almost an entire hour. And these songs are so good. They're just real jammy. There's some really cool funk stuff going throughout, psychedelic rock stuff. It's a mixed bag of wonderful audio heaven for me.
And like Jason said, this is, I think what he said was really interesting, where it's a real reflection of the band and their influences, because you hear a little bit, it sounds, Jeff just rattling it off, I'm sure people listening are going, there's no way I can hear all of that. And that's not, yes.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting, but can we just talk about how versatile Jason Victor is? Producing, then his own playing. And to me, it's just a cool story, record store, and then here, can you drive a van that really can't drive, but sure. And then, just jamming, and then like this slow progression. And I don't know, he's just a really cool guy. And you can tell that he's passionate about the music that he, listens to, but passionate about the music that he composes and plays. I really like hearing that from a musician. And, it's just cool. It's just cool to hear that.
Yeah, and all the projects that he's been a part of, the bands that he's been in, producing, working with Judy Collins.
That was wild.
That was so crazy.
That was wild. And then, here, everything is like this happenstance, Oh, and I have a friend who had this guitar shop, and he builds guitars, and now I have this guitar that's completely to my specs.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm sorry. And Jeff, if I could ever wish to be like a fly on the wall, I want to be like a nano chip in Jason Victor's phone. Because imagine the things that are, emails with Matthew Sweet, tracks going back and forth between him and the other members of Dream Syndicate.
Right.
I mean, ridiculous. I want to be inside his phone.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
But very cool. Very
Yes.
cool. And if Jeff and I both recommend the new Skull Practitioners EP. If you haven't gotten it, please go download, stream it, buy it, whatever you do. It's worth your time. They're
Yes.
a great band.
Yes.
And if you can get your hands on that cassette, please do. Jeff and I have copies, but it's kind of hard to find. I haven't looked on Discogs.
No, I haven't either. Yeah, I don't even know if it's on.
About that, but
Yeah, I don't think it's on there. I think just the EP is on there.
yeah.
So in the Red Records, if you want to look for that EP, that's where you can go find that on their website.
And it's really good to hear that Skull Practitioners is going to give us a full length.
Yes.
LP. We get to have Jason Victor back on.
Yes. Yeah. I was excited to hear that. I had no idea about that. And speaking of the Dream Syndicate, on an upcoming episode, we'll be talking to the bass player Mark Walton. So I'm really excited about that too. So that will be coming up here in the next episode or two. So,
peeps, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Jeff and I absolutely did.
yes.
So, Jeff, shall we close this episode?
Yes, let's do it.
All right. Gente, agrubiado.
Groove on, Paisley people. And thanks, First Take.
Jason, first take.
Years ago, but when I woke up, I was lost with only one way to go. I can lose everything in a minute or two. It's not fair to put you against all of the years behind. 'Cause history kind of tales when it and you are aligned. Yeah.